Did we make it? There we are. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, friends, whatever time it might be in your part of the world. Welcome back to the live stream. My name is Jeff Fritz. It's so good to see you. I'm a little stressed out this morning. Not going to lie. I'm a little stressed out this morning. We started a little bit late. I've got a handful of other things that were happening around me and trying to get ready, and we made it. Things weren't working. Had to get things reconfigured. Had to make some emergency changes. It's so good to see you out there. I originally had planned to do the stream this morning from my Mac. I had everything all set up. Went and plugged everything into the workstation back there, and no. My demos, as I'm going through them last minute this morning, nothing works on the Mac. Okay. All right. So we're going to fall over. We're going to fail over. We're going to go back to Windows. I promise you, next time I will be on the Mac, and next time we have July 4th. We're going to be out 2 weeks for our next episode. So the 11th, I will be on the Mac for the 11th, and we'll do some .NET development and discussion on the Mac at that time. Oh, gee. All right, let's do this. Let's welcome in the chat room. How are you doing there, chat room? They're right over here is the chat room. Let me say hello to some folks. Hello to Mayank. Stephen, good to see you. Dimmy, hello. Mohammed, hello. Good morning. The API seems promising. We're going to get into just the starts of an API, and I'll show a little bit of the basics. We have a couple other questions that were submitted out there that we're going to get into around middleware and error handling. We're going to take a look at that as well while we're in here. How you doing, Rizwan in Pakistan? Good to see you. Eric is here from Kenya. Hello. Dan Moyer, good morning to you. Sisad is here, and they're an actual electric engineer. You find the circuit board fascinating. You like that? Thank you. Cold and 9 degrees Celsius in Melbourne. Oh, Stephen, it's a wonderful 80 some Fahrenheit here in my part of the States. Hello to you, T. Steenbergen in Rotterdam. Hit tab. Good morning. Haven't been able to be in every live because of starting a new job, but starting a new job is something to celebrate. Fantastic to hear that. Hello. Debases Paul. Yes, I need a nice cup of coffee, let me tell you. John Peter, we're going to have some fun today. Yeah, I don't mind providing a little bit of a distraction from the current news that's going on out there. Whatever part of the world you're in, there's some things going on that, yeah, it's okay. Let's get away. Let's learn and spend some time with some tech. How you doing there, Gabriel on YouTube? Is it Kuropanathan? Hello to you in Madurai. Let me see here. Ancient Coder, happy Monday to you over there on Twitch. Rambling Geek on Twitch. Hello. I'm doing all right, Steven. We're doing pretty good. How you doing there, Bester? Yeah, technology was letting me down this morning significantly. Apricot, good morning. Well, good afternoon to you in Ukraine. Reading through here. Greetings to Claudio in Switzerland. Kushal Patel, hello to you. Araz, how am I doing from Kurdistan? I think we're gonna do all right today, Araz. I think we're gonna turn this around. Mario, hello. Willkommen aus Deutschland. Guten Nachmittag to you, Mario. Tazeen, hello. Good morning in Pakistan. Well, it's probably evening in Pakistan. Seven Modo is here from Bahrain. Copper Beardy is here. HTTP client update? No, not going to touch on that at all. But we're focused on a little bit of what's going on, building with the existing content that's out here. So our life takes precedence. Totally understood. Yeah, agreed. Greetings to you, Carl Edwards in South Africa. Hello, IBN Technology from France. Good to see you. Teresa, good evening to you. Reading through the list here. My goodness, so many folks. Great to see everybody here. Good morning, Alvaro in Venezuela. Musab is here from Sudan. Araz is in Kurdistan. Hot here in Sweden, says Sassad. 28 Celsius or 83 Fahrenheit. There you go. Yeah. Freecoin is here from Morocco. Will I show demo for repository pattern clean architecture? Yes, I will. I'm going to continue using the repository pattern in this. How you doing there, Nick in Greece? Anul from Turkey. Manoj in India. Hello. Good evening to you, Andy in Hong Kong. If I don't, very international chat group today. Let me get some music playing here in the background, and we'll do some more AMA. I'm gonna run. No, I don't want the EDM today. No. I want synthwave. I want to be nice and chill. There we go. This is Stream Beats. This is a series of songs, a series of playlists, all kinds of music available for you in various genres. I'm choosing the synthwave playlist, so it's tech. It's kind of very upbeat, just chill for us to listen to in the background as we're writing some code together today. There's playlists available out there for Amazon Music, Apple Music, and Spotify, like I'm using here today. You can even download the music if you'd like it. Check it out at streambeats.com. Big thanks to Harris Heller and his team for making this music available for us today. Got to make sure I get that disclaimer in before the DMCA police come knocking and decide to mute the entire video here. Svalwa, hello to you on Twitch. Good evening to Fazal in India. Jay is here from Florida. Hello. Yeah, synthwave is pretty cool for development. Nick Craver is here from North Carolina. How you doing there, Nick? Good to see you. I like seeing that we have a couple MVPs that stop in to help out answering questions, because I am going to touch on very basic topics, and there's folks that are going to have some advanced questions that we'll tinker with, we'll get into, but the goal here is to help those folks that are just starting out get some questions answered, get you pointed in the right direction, get you some documentation so that you can learn more while we're off stream, ask those questions, and get you moving in the right direction the next stream. Nick Chapsis is here. Oh my gosh, we've got a collection of Nicks, that's right. Hello, good to see you. Thank you for tuning in. Edberto is here from Sao Paulo, Brazil. Oh my gosh. I think we've got, do we have, I don't think we saw anybody from Australia tune in, but I think we've got 5 of the 7 continents going here. Hello, Teresa is in Nepal. I love hearing the sound offs where folks are coming in from. Biniam is in from Toronto. Stevie from Northern Ireland. My Irish roots. I need to sometime visit Ireland. Need to get back there. Something to be said about that. We've got about 33 minutes here of a little bit more AMA. Ask me anything, not just talking about where folks are from, but if you're working with .NET, if there's things that you're using, we're focusing on ASP.NET Core. But if there's things you're using that you need some help with, we're doing a little bit of Ask Me Anything for the first half hour here. And of course, there's all kinds of folks there in the chat room that can chime in as well. But we'll do our best to answer your questions and get you running here before we get into the lesson today. What's my best coding music? Asks Manoj. I like the EDM playlist or the rock playlist from Streambeats. So streambeats.com. I don't have a link to it in the video just below, but I can type that in here. I'll listen to either the rock or EDM playlist and get into a groove with that. Just be able to block things out. I don't actually really even listen to it because I get so focused on whatever task it is that I'm writing code around. Hello, Mr. Donald in Morocco. Stevens here from Nigeria. Hello. Caprono from Kenya. Welcome in. Rip MMD on YouTube asks, what's the difference between an API and a web service? That's a good question. When we build in ASP.NET Core, when we build what we call APIs, that's a RESTful endpoint. That's an endpoint that you can communicate with using your web browser. You can use HTTP clients. You can use other technologies for machine-to-machine interactions. So those APIs that we're opening up are ways for us to make machine-to-machine communications. A web service is an endpoint that listens specifically on a web server for interactions. Now, there might be different protocols we might use. We might use things like gRPC. We might use JSON format to interact with those. We might use XML. Those are web services, and a web service is an API that's being exposed on a web server. An API can be listening from all kinds of different ports, can be running and listening on different applications, different servers. But when we think of a web service, it's specifically listening from a web server. So a web service is just a little bit more definition around what an API is. We'll add more qualifications onto what a web service is by layering on things like gRPC, OpenAPI. Dare I say, and I know there's a couple folks out there that are going to cringe, SOAP. Those are all types of web services that expose an API for folks to interact with. And when we talk about APIs in the scheme, in the context of ASP.NET Core, we're building web services that typically return and interact with JSON data. We can layer on top of that OpenAPI and gRPC to be able to work with that. Arthur is here on YouTube, and Arthur asks, what are the best options to deploy and keep online a C# API? Free and paid, please. So we're here on the .NET channel. We're on the Microsoft channel, so I'm going to tell you first and foremost, Microsoft Azure. You can run on Microsoft Azure. You can run on Azure App Service. Very easy to deploy an API. There's tools inside of Visual Studio that will allow you to right-click and deploy immediately to those locations. If you're using Azure DevOps, GitHub Actions, there's great tools, there's actions, there's pipelines, and the ability for you to easily configure your application to be published directly to Azure. Of course, there's other clouds out there that you can put that API into a container and deploy out to Google Cloud, AWS very easily as well. And of course, Azure has the ability for you to host with containers on a bunch of different services. So what's the best way to deploy? Well, Azure App Service has a free tier that you can use, that you can deploy to, and it limits the amount of interactions that you can have. So I would check out Azure App Service for a free tier. When it comes to other more interesting ways that you want to scale and grow and you want paid capabilities, take a look at putting that inside of a container. There's tooling inside of Visual Studio that will generate the container Docker file for you, get everything configured so you can publish that image and run it from any one of the clouds that's out there. Run it on Kubernetes if you'd like, and hopefully be very successful with that. Thank you for the question, Arthur. Really appreciate it. Rizwan with a comment here. I always find authentication and authorization overwhelming with APIs. What do you think I should do? Run. No, kidding. We're going to be talking about authorization and authentication later in July. It's one of the later elements in this series. Take a look at JWTs. Take a look at Identity Server. Getting all of that configured is not trivial, but that's where you're going to end up going. There's an earlier video in this playlist on YouTube where we talk about getting that configured if you want to take a look at how we did that. When would I use unit of work with the repository pattern, and when wouldn't I? Asks Gabriel on YouTube. That's another depends type question. Gosh. When would I use unit of work with it? Yeah, depends. Unit of work is a model, is a design pattern that you're going to use when you have a clear set of database interactions that you want to commit as one unit of work. So when you're working with repository pattern and unit of work, this is when you're doing multiple changes to your database. Honestly, I avoid this type of approach entirely and instead get involved with I want one change to the database, and I end up then with a NoSQL type of approach, so that I end up with one table that has all the things in a collection that I need for that thing. And then I'll have some analysis, some other capabilities wake up later and go do analysis and distribute data appropriately. But you start mixing some of those design patterns and it becomes tricky to handle and manage. Let me see here. How you doing there? Kane from Cameron, welcome. Manoj says, my tutorial videos help get a full-time .NET developer job. Congratulations, Manoj. We gotta celebrate that. Hang on, we gotta celebrate this. Get that in there. Big congratulations to Manoj. Stevie on YouTube says, I'm interested in learning more about MSAL auth integrated with Vue.js. Anyone has any good tutorials? Sorry, I would redirect you to my friends on the 425 show for more information about doing integration and authentication with different platforms. And I think he's done a number of videos on that. Steven on YouTube has a question. When configuring a web application, the default application in Visual Studio for Mac is set to no authentication. Are there cases where this should be changed to individual? When you're adding authentication, yes, change it to individual. Yes, absolutely. That's absolutely where I would go. Is it set to no authentication because we handle this within the app using APIs? No, it's set to no authentication by default because they're giving you the simplest template. When you start layering in, I want to turn on other options, the template becomes more complicated. So most folks, when they build an application, actually don't want authentication, and they'll layer it in later. See, look at that. Nick Craver saying not soap. That's right. There you go. Web services typically have a WSDL definition file. No, Jay. Incorrect. They do not have a WSDL definition file. SOAP services have a WSDL definition file. Things like OpenAPI have a swagger.json file. gRPC have other definition files hanging out there that you can query and interact with. WSDL is a SOAP thing. Do I like Swagger for APIs? Yes, I do. I think it's a fantastic technology. At your work, they're still using WCF and SOAP. Nothing wrong with that. They're just fine. Good morning to you, Alfredo in Chiapas. Hello, hello. Hey, Chris Gomez is here. Hello. Do you need to add data protection in your startup for Web API? I'm not familiar with that. With that method, I would have to look that up. But I don't think that's not what I would be looking for. I'd be looking for I forget the name of the method that adds JWT, but that would be the direction along with add authentication, and there's a couple more things in there that these types of configuration things I only look at once or twice when I build an application, so I don't have it off the top of my head. Is there any other login tech to use over identity that's not paid? So hang on. Identity, the Microsoft identity technologies that are used as part of ASP.NET are they're a framework that are part of how you authorize, right? How you authenticate and authorize folks that use your application. Where they connect to for storage and interacting with that data can be Azure Active Directory, can be a local database, can be a paid service like Auth0. Actually, not Auth0, but Okta. So you can use OAuth to go connect to those things, OpenID to go connect to those things. So when you ask, can somebody manage my identity for free? You're literally giving them all of the security capabilities for your application. Identity will store in a database of your choosing for free. You can put that on app service. You can put that wherever you'd like. A SQLite database on disk, your choice. When you start pushing that out and storing it somewhere else, you better be real sure that you can trust those folks. And the best way to be sure you can trust them is to pay them. So, yeah, with Entity Framework, you don't really need a unit of work. So, try and do the simplest things possible. Don't jump right into the deep end of doing complex things. Very good point, Nick. What do I use in production web API to add a database? Add DB context, the pooling, or the factory ones? Asks Mario. It's the same thing for ASP.NET Core. And I'll show you how Web API and ASP.NET Core mix. Add DB context works just fine. So does, I forget what the pooling and the factory ones are. I'm actually using a repository with this. Works just fine. Vikas is not understanding ASP.NET MVC. What don't you understand? Give me a little bit more context there and we can answer your question. Mihai asks, can I make money with C# templates? Sure, absolutely. Website templates that help folks get productive? Absolutely. There's folks that make money selling C# widgets, components. If you make templates that make it real easy for folks to get started with ASP.NET, Blazor, with .NET MAUI, and get them more productive faster with some nice visual design elements, absolutely you can make money with that. And a number of companies that do include DevExpress, Infragistics, Syncfusion, Progress, I'm forgetting one, Grape City. So absolutely, plenty of folks out there that are doing fantastic work building templates and selling. They're selling components, but full application templates, oh yeah, definitely something on that. How to save a C# file, Control S in your editor, or if you're in Vim, :W will get you there also. Nick, any global air handling for today? Yes, that's actually the first thing we're going to get into when we get into today's topic. What to know before a .NET interview? I'm sorry, that's way too broad. Know enough about C# that you can answer some basic questions. Be familiar with a framework or two inside of .NET, like ASP.NET, like working with console applications or Windows Forms or WPF. And I would say have written an application or two. That'll get you there. Eric asks, Razor or Blazor? Blazor. My preference is Blazor, but Razor templates inside ASP.NET Core build fantastic websites. Do I have any projects in ASP.NET? I've pivoted to Blazor right now, but I have I've pivoted to Blazor mostly, so not currently out there. Palash asks, how should I use Interceptor? I think that's supposed to be with AOT in .NET 6 with Microsoft DI. I need a little bit more context there. You're getting deep into some topics. Other than Blazor, do I have a favorite JavaScript framework? Nope. Sorry. The JavaScript frameworks I am not a fan of. jQuery did a fantastic job of consolidating and making a technology accessible to everybody. The recent JavaScript frameworks try to fork and recreate the exact same things that everybody else is doing and make them more complex. There's a bit of one-upsmanship in them, and I don't find them that productive when they do that. The time I've spent with Gatsby and React, sorry, it's not productive. It's not something that I find friendly. There you go. Add identity server JWT. That's what I was thinking. Thank you, Oren. You've used Vue with Azure AD. Cool. Azure AD B2C does provide a very large tier. What is it, like 50,000 objects you can store for free? Check out the pricing out there. But Azure AD, you can definitely use and scale pretty well. Let me see here. Pick a pet project, cards, hats, cars, and it will make the process 1,000% faster. Yes. The best way to learn .NET, how do you learn? Do you read? Do you watch videos? Do you talk to folks? These are all ways that we can get you pointed in the right direction. Check out .net/learn. Oh, I nearly knocked over the coffee. And there is material for whatever way that you learn that you can go in there and click around. Interactive tutorials, self-paced training material, links to videos, links to live streams like this one so you can talk to folks and have that teacher experience that folks value. But I like what Mario says. Just start by doing it. Just start by writing a little bit of code. When folks ask about industry standards, it's a loaded question. There is no industry standard. There's preferences. Which way do you prefer to do things when you want to choose a user interface framework? Like, to say, is the industry standard to use Razor Pages, Blazor, or MVC? Use what makes you happy. Not one of them is a standard. That's why they made 3 of them. Because different folks like to build different applications different ways. And that should be clear when you look at how different folks that you collaborate with prefer to write their code. They do things different ways. Alfredo has a question. They have an app that uses barcode lector. And sometimes doesn't send every data. How to know if Postman arrived every data? I think you have a barcode device that's sometimes doesn't send every time. I'm not sure. I would need to see more about your scenario, though, Alfredo. I would turn on logging on my server so I could see if the data is arriving. I would turn on developer tools and maybe even do a little network sniffing to see if data is being transferred. But I would need to see a little bit more of your scenario. Mean practices in a project, but don't you have the experience for a job in enterprise? Here's the secret. Nobody has experience in enterprise when they first get started. You're not going to get into an enterprise job at a senior or lead level without experience. So look for those junior levels to jump in and get started with. Yeah, why didn't it send to Twitch, that last link? Oh, that's annoying. Thank you, Brutal IK. Welcome in. Avis, hello in Dubai. In my opinion, which is the best Blazor component library? Asks Olivia Mia. That is a loaded question. I really like the paid components that we get from various vendors. I have a fantastic relationship working with the folks at Progress Software. They have a very large, very complete collection out there. I've heard folks say very good things also about Sync Fusions. Blazor components. Mud Blazor, if you want to go free and open source, is another component library that a lot of folks like to use. But Olivia, if you have a couple bucks and you can buy the subscription, Progress and the support that they give you, 24-hour turnaround fixes and support, really, really good. That tool set that I use. I have a relationship with them, full disclosure, and I'm a previous employee, so the way that they build components is kind of the way that I think about components. That's me. All of the component vendors have free trials available for you. Check them out. Go download them. See how they work for you. I think you're going to find that there's one that's going to work the way that you think and delivers content the way that you need for your application. But they're all very similar. Mihai asks, can we create database tables and columns dynamically with Entity Framework Core by passing different CSV files? I wouldn't. So the point of Entity Framework Core is you've generated a mapping from your C# code, from your object-oriented code that you've written for .NET to your database. That's the object relation mapper, right? You have your .NET object, you have your relational object, and you map between them. That interaction is decided and built up front when you start working with Entity Framework Core. You probably could write some code, a little bit of a hack, to get that to work. I would not recommend it. And if you're allocating tables and columns dynamically, I would look at a different data storage architecture so that you can store things maybe in JSON format in a more generic table structure so that you can parse and interact with things differently. But Mihai, what you're describing there makes me want to go towards a NoSQL type of solution like MongoDB, Cosmos DB, or RavenDB would be the three that I would take a look at. And honestly, I would lean towards RavenDB. James Foreman on YouTube asks, what's my favorite Linux distro? Have I tried Arch? Now, hang on. That's what all the Arch users ask. Have you tried Arch? I'm an Ubuntu user. I really like Ubuntu. Particularly, I've been using Kubuntu on my K-Focus laptop and really enjoy that experience. Very well tied together, very well managed. And it gets me out of having to think of managing and interacting with all of the operating system stuff. I get to just focus and write code. Valenza asks, any advice on learning C#.NET for beginners with regards to basic fundamentals, or go straight to building full stack applications? .NET/learn is where I would tell you to go. Don't jump right into full stack. But if you are a beginner, go over to .NET/learn. We have great videos to get you started with the basics. Look up higher in this playlist on YouTube, and you'll see some stuff to get you started with the basics with interactive code inside a browser. Abhishek has been working for 2 years on .NET. What would be the next step to be more clear about .NET? Start building. Well, it depends. What have you been building with .NET? And what do you mean by more clear? What do you want to do more with .NET? What kind of applications have you been building? What kinds of tools? If you've been building Xamarin applications, take a look at web applications. If you haven't touched new versions of C#, if you haven't touched C# 9 or 10, upgrade to .NET 6. Check out those new versions. If you've only been working in building web applications, try .NET MAUI and building a native application to run on iOS or Android. There's great stuff there that you can learn and get you more familiar with more of the frameworks. But I don't know what you've been doing. I'm not quite sure how to point you to new stuff. Yeah, thank you, Chris, for chiming in there about productivity. Palash wants to do logging with the help of Interceptor with inbuilt Microsoft Interceptor. I used to do that earlier in Unity DI container. So logging in ASP.NET Core, you don't need an interceptor. There's a logging component there, a logging factory. you can receive that logging factory and just pass messages into it. Robert asks, am I banned? No, you're not banned. I see your question right here. Good morning, Johnny B. Cat. Yeah. Let me see here. Let me see. Robson loves Dev Express. Yeah. Telluric Progress has great support. I see folks talking about the various Blazor components here. Is learning MVC now worth it, or should I move to .NET API with React as a front end? Depends. When you work with the JavaScript frameworks, you need to be able to manage not just that framework, but all the dependencies that come with it. Great example. We were building an application using Gatsby, and we had a component that depended on a component that downstream depended on some component, and that component way downstream changed. I need to know how to go and fix and unwind that entire call stack, that entire dependency tree, and go fix that thing. Is working with some of those JavaScript frameworks, and where you need to compose from many, many different creators that don't necessarily have support in mind when they collaborate with each other, is that worth it? Depends. You're going to be rendering and building code that runs client-side, or do you want it to render server-side? Your choice. I can't tell you one is right or one is wrong. A lot of folks choose to run a lot of JavaScript client-side, including the websites that you're watching this video on right now. Both YouTube and Twitch do that significantly, and they send down a lot of JavaScript code to run in your browser. Is that what you'd prefer? Or would you rather have it render all the HTML code on the server and send down just the rendered content? Depends. I don't know what type of application you're building, but those are some of the things you need to weigh when you plan and think about those types of applications. Zofrans on Twitch, they've been developing for about a year, learning on the side via web, YouTube, etc. Have my first proof of concept MVC web app up and running. Congratulations. Working on an updated version before moving to apps for my family's small business. Cool. Struggling with the need for real-time personal feedback Q&A. Any good place you can point, boards or etc. Feedback and Q&A, no. I mean, of course, as soon as you say, can I get some Q&A, I'm going to point you to Stack Overflow. But to get some personal feedback, that's a really good question. I don't have a good place to point you to for getting that. Sorry, I'm going to have to pass on that. But human feedback, yeah, I don't know. Many component collections are too expensive, hence open source being a great solution. Sure, absolutely, go for it. But the challenge there is you are now your support. Be aware, you now need to be the one who's ready to take on support for that. Arthur on YouTube asks, do I use Visual Studio Code to program C# in Linux? Yes and no. I when I'm working on a larger application, yes, I'm working with Visual Studio Code. I do enjoy dipping into Vim to code with C# in Linux as well. James asks, can I do a demo of writing a Linux app from Visual Studio to WSL? Open an issue in the GitHub repository, and we'll take a look at that. Abhishek is working on web apps. Check out building things with Windows Forms, WPF, or .NET MAUI, so you can see how those types of interactions work. What are you building with web apps? Have you gotten into building microservices, distributed transactions, working with Azure functions and serverless capabilities? Those will get you more architecture insight as you build in and start distributing interactions with queues and service bus. Arthur's more familiar with React in the front end. Is Blazor a good option to some freelancing? Blazor is picking up steam because it's fully supported by Microsoft. It's fully a part of the .NET framework, and unlike things like React, it's got a complete set of tools, complete framework that supports it, that's very opinionated, and you don't need to go pull in tools and things from other folks to have a good development experience. Robson asks, what's the best way to authenticate our users? ASP.NET Identity, something else? Yeah, you use ASP.NET Identity to then bring in technology from folks like Okta, Azure Active Directory, so on and so forth. How can I request header values, get and apply custom validations? Asks Hafiz. Great question. Let's do that when we talk about middleware in today's stream. When we get into the lesson here in about another 2 or 3 minutes. Let's talk about taking a look at header values when we get in there. Apricot, will I have some sort kind of subscribers GitHub project checking, like a reality show? That's not a bad idea. I really like that idea. Let me come back to that. Let me do some talking to some folks. I really like that idea. Yeah. Let me talk to some folks and get back to you on that. I like that a lot. David isn't there some kind of package management like software that handles that kind of change downstream and upstream? Yes and no. It does. But you need to understand and appreciate all the changes that happen with that. So what do you do with that open source software when it doesn't work? When it hasn't been updated to support the new feature you want to build? You need to now go dive down and figure out how to work with that. Can I send you some real examples? Keep watching right here. And the examples are in the GitHub repository attached. We'll get things deployed and up there. Jason Bach on Twitch. How you doing there? Jason says, paid components may seem expensive, but consider what you're paying for, like support. Exactly. The support, the interactions that you're going to get with folks who are experts in building those things for companies, very much worth it. What's my opinion and analysis on the recent Stack Overflow survey? I haven't read it yet. I've been busy doing other things, and this weekend we moved my daughter into college. Haven't had a chance to take a look at the Stack Overflow survey yet. I did see some folks say, "Oh gosh, look! Now all the Microsoft tools are up at the top for folks that prefer popular technologies." Yep. Databases. Where is it? Cloud platforms. Web frameworks and technologies. It's interesting to me how slow the technologies are that folks prefer. Like, really? You like using a really slow framework that is really hard to manage and deploys thousands of files. Good luck to you. And other frameworks and libraries. .NET. Why is .NET an other framework? Like, integrated development environments. Yeah, development environments, Visual Studio Code by almost double over Visual Studio. Yeah. Yeah. So, and I heard some folks complaining and agreeing with stuff in there. All right. How you doing there? Fawn in Sydney. Hello. And we are out of time. Just taking a quick peek around the horn. Companies not paying for commercial libraries is leaping over dollars to save pennies. Yes. You're a company that isn't going to spend $1,000 on a component package with all the support that comes with it. I mean, that's That's less than a developer's salary for a week. I mean, come on. Come on. Totally worth it. What is the best way to test APIs to ensure we're going to get into testing in a later stream. Do me a favor, open an issue on the GitHub repository, and let me link the GitHub repository. Actually, it might still... Is the command still out there? Is the command still out there? There you go. Yep. Drop an issue in the GitHub repository there about testing, and we will talk about it on a future stream. Fuel Snable says Blazor server's working out really well. Fantastic. Happy to hear that for you. All right, let's get into this. Yes, we are getting into... No, we're not wrapping up the stream. We're wrapping up our AMA section and moving on to talking about and building some code, writing some code here together live on stream. So let me grab my gunners, get these on, and we're going to head over to the main desk over there, and we're going to what the heck? We're going to write some code. We're going to build an API to continue working with this collections website that we've been building here on stream. So one of the common questions I get is, and we saw it a couple times here, how should I learn .NET? Build something, write something. And this is one of those websites, this is one of those applications that I encourage folks to write. Everybody's got some sort of a collection. You might collect coins, stamps, movie posters. I collect hats. That's right, I'm a hat geek. And what's that look like when you have a little application that manages that collection, shows it off, right? You want to be able to tell your friend, hey buddy, check this out. Look at my collection of whatever. I got this really cool thing that I picked up over the weekend. What does that application look like? You can learn and build and tweak when you have an application that you have a vested interest in. So let's do this. Let's go and build a little application that's going to allow you to manage your collection. And we went through and we built some things over the past 2-3 streams that allow us now to store data in a database. We aren't putting data in the database yet, but we're fetching data from the database and we're presenting it on screen. Today, we're going to continue by adding some error handling. We're going to add some middleware. We're not necessarily valuable middleware. And our error handler, I'm going to show you how that works. A request from one of our viewers. So I'll show you a little bit of that. We'll get into the API and I'll show you how you can build an API to quickly fetch data from our database and make it available for maybe a JavaScript application that interacts, a mobile application that wants to query data from your web server, or other ways that you want to interact, maybe native applications that want to query and interact with that data. All right, so let's head over there to the other desk. Where do I buy my glasses? I get these from Gunner. There's a link on my Twitch channel, twitch.tv/CSharpFritz, and you can see more about the Gunner computer glasses that I use. I thought I saw one more thing in there that I need to comment on. Do I think it's safe to build an application on Maui for a non-government organization, for an NGO? Yes, I do. All right, let me head over to the other scene and let's start talking about this. Got to grab the coffee and stuff. Got to change microphones too. There we go. We're on the right microphone now. I wasn't on the right microphone. Now we are. Heading over to the other scene. And there I am. Hello. So I was tweaking my chroma key back here, and I need it dialed up just a little bit more. Rats. Because what it does with the dialed up chroma key, it blots out my my hair. Yeah, see? But I get the flat screen in the background behind me. All right, let me head over to, let me get the teleprompter working here. There we go. Fantastic. Yes, gotta have the coffee. Gotta have my coffee over here. And I want to have my clock in front of me. There we go. All right. Let's dig in. Let's get started. I'm looking at my cheat screen over here, looking at you, and we're all good. Here's where we're going. APIs and error handling, and this is based off of a question that we got coming into the GitHub repository. Let me open that up. No, you don't need to restore all the things, Microsoft Edge. Let me head over to the repository over here, and we received a question. We'll dig in further on temporal tables on another stream. And there was also a question over here about service implementation. Service bus. That is a big question. So, question around, hey, can you show some middleware and global error handling? We're going to do this today. We're going to talk about middleware and error handling inside our ASP.NET application and how you can use those to create a better experience for the folks that are interacting with your application. So let's answer this question and get into this today. I'm not logged in this browser. Am I logged in the other browser? I think I am. Let's take a look-see. Come on, Firefox. Yeah, there I am. Answering this question on, right, what day is today? Today is the 27th. With demos in 12:05. All right. And I will provide a link when we're done here. So, I have this README that's out here with the agenda that we're going to go into because we're going to live code this today. We're going to walk through and we're going to build and interact with this as we're answering questions and building this application. All right? So, we're going to discuss error handling in ASP.NET Core. I've even got a link here that jumps right to the error handling documentation. We're going to talk about adding a custom global error handler into the application, and we're going to do that. Let's add an error handler that puts up a custom message and does whatever custom things we want. I don't know. We'll figure it out when we get there. Let's add an API that will allow you to get information about the items in our collection. And next time when we get into working with forms inside of MVC, we'll also wire up the appropriate put, post, and delete handlers for our API as well. We're going to introduce some middleware to inspect the request. And there was a question earlier in chat, hey, I want to inspect the headers and do something appropriately. Let's do that right here. We will get to this. We're going to enable Open API with the onGet method. And we're also going to dial up and show some minimal APIs here as another way that you can build and work with APIs in ASP.NET Core. I'm not sure we're going to get through all 6 of these. I'm not sure we're even going to get through into the 5th one. We'll see. Rico, we do not technology shame here or compete technologies. I don't appreciate that comment at all. All right. And if I have a moderator there, can you eliminate that? Can you wipe that message, please? All right. Let's get into error handling in ASP.NET Core. When you typically do error handling, most folks just leave the current content there and they're like, that's good enough. When you look at the error handling that comes with ASP.NET Core, it's not too bad to start, right? Let's get rid of that. Because it's actually very, very simple right here. If the app environment is development, use this exception handler on /home/error. Okay. So that this is an error page that's defined, it's out there, and you can interact with. There's now default code in ASP.NET Core that when the environment is development, it's going to turn on developer exception pages. Let me show you. So let's, over here in Windows PowerShell, let me drop into that folder. And like I was saying, I was trying to get this working on my Mac, so I'm a little recovering here, trying to. We're going to work in 1205. There we go. And in the source folder, so I should be able to just .NET run and it run. Yes, building. And so I saw this error earlier, and there's duplicated files sitting in the folder, and I need to clean this up. Take a look at this. Somehow I got this seed data repeated here, and I don't know why. We're going to get rid of some of that. .NET run one more time. How you doing there, Lycan? Hello, hello. Is this error handling in .NET MVC or Blazor? Well, Blazor server side would be the same thing. Blazor WebAssembly, different. And you can do different things with it when you're over there in Blazor WebAssembly. What happened here? Telling me can't create the Let's do .NET EF database update. Make sure we've got all that stuff, so I can create and work with the database. Database is already up to date. Fantastic. Then where are you having a problem here, friend? Because my collection site.db is right there. Try that again. And back over here. No, unable to resolve service for collection repository. Let's take a look and see if we can do some debugging here. Collection item repository. And if we go over to home controller, it's I've merged some data here, and I've got a little bit of a mismatch. So there's a collection repository that gets collection items. Now, what's collection item repository? I've merged data here. Okay. So let's resolve this. Let's clean this up. I've got some. I think collection repository is our. Yeah, database context. It goes and gets and returns that as an array. So let's take this, get rid of that. So collection repository returns collection items. So that's good. Let me go over to program. So this should be collection repository that we're returning right here. Okay. So I had two objects that did roughly the same thing that were colliding, mismatching. Where'd I get the geek hat? I got this at the Microsoft store, actually. All right, so there's my hat collection and the two hats that I have on screen. I really should put them in as... let's see if we can update that view quickly. Right, class card. And it's just doing a partial to output them. Let's go over here. can I say display inline block and get them to go next to each other? Better. Not great. Still not quite the same height, but close enough. At least it's not scrolling off the bottom of the page now, right? So there they are. I've got my 2 hats in my collection. I'm going to add an error handler, some middleware, and some an API to this today. All right. Thank you, Jason, for answering that question from Mamcode about what Blazor is. All right. So when we have our default error handler in here, and I mentioned there's a pretty good one that's built in by default, and you actually saw it there briefly. If I go back to the home controller, and if we do something in here that isn't what it's expecting, right? So I had collection item repository in here. That might actually just error out because it doesn't know what it is. Yeah. Let's do this. Let's comment this out. Right, okay, here. Wait a sec. I removed that. How does it know how to go get it? I removed that. You don't have a database there. There we go. So this is the default developer error handler that is built and registered for you at a global level inside your application. And it's actually something that we as developers like. When we are working with building our applications, you want, when there's an error, to get stuff like this output. It's very handy to be able to see, hey, I got an error on line 28. Here's the stack trace, so I can read through and see exactly what was called, the order of things, and be able to figure out what happened here. And it tried to call repository get, and it got an object reference, a null reference exception here. So, I mean, I kind of created this problem by saying, well, you don't have a repository here to work with. So, I also, with this developer exception page, have the ability to look at all the information that was passed back and forth to my machine here, right? And the routing, how did we proceed through our application? How did we interact with the code and the various places that I could navigate to? How did it decide to end up here? And it was looking at this route pattern and decided to go to the home controller and the index action that you see way down there. Okay. So I have a lot of information in this default developer error handler. But if you want to customize, if you want to build your own error handler, maybe there's something you want to retry. Maybe there's something you want to be able to handle and tell it, go do something else. If this fails, log it here, do something. You want to intercept and do some alternate interaction. We have a documentation page, and I have it linked on the README for this, that tells you all about how to handle errors in ASP.NET Core. And in particular, right, it talks about that developer exception page that I told you about. The error page that comes by default is the next topic that it links to, is actually here. Let's give you a little bit of a view here. So this is where it routes to. Let's get rid of that. If there's an error, okay. App use exception handler right there. So if there's an exception, route to this location. Send the browser here. And when it gets there, right, that's this method. We're telling it, Don't cache anything. This is never cached at all, okay? Don't store any information about the error. And we're going to return a view with an error view model with information about exactly what happened. And that goes into, right, there should be a view here. There it is. And here's the information. If the developer exception page is not turned on, you get this by default. Okay, it shows, hey, this was the request that came in. Swapping to the development environment will display more detailed information. So I can actually force that to be the way that it behaves by moving this up. Okay, let's just put that right there. I'm going to save. My .NET Watch will attempt to patch and reload. I'll go back over here. Oh, it did a hot reload. Hang on. Rebuild. Because I wanted to hit that. This is the default error handler, okay? Notice it's inside the layout, right? I still have my top layout on the page, right? If I go to the privacy page, I get my header and there is a footer. It's cut off at the bottom. Actually, you might be able to... Yeah, you can see the footer down there. But when I go to a page that has an error, instead of it just blacking out the whole screen and you have that... Remember that yellow screen of error you might see in older ASP.NET applications? We insert that error just inside where it would have been rendered in the layout, and we can put some friendly information here. Now, if you want to customize this, go for it. It's sitting right here inside that error CSHTML. Fritz's collection website, right? And now it says Fritz's collection website. So if you want to put images in here, if you want to put the HTTP status cats, you know about the HTTP status cats, right? The original HTTP status cats. Right? Like, these are HTTP status codes as photos of cats. Request timeout. Whatever it might be. However, you might want to customize your exception page. You can format that error here. All right? So request ID, that you can go and look back into logs and you'll be able to coordinate and see where the error was. But you can access and interact with that exception by calling this part right here, HTTP context features iException handler path feature. Check this out. So if I grab that, I can drop in here and helps if I put that inside of a... What? Let's put this inside of a block of code. Yes. And I need some using statements. I need to get that. No. Grab it. Let's grab it in the model code, in the controller code, I'm sorry. Over here. Don't just return the view. Put that in there. Okay. Doesn't know what that is. Let's get a using statement. Okay. And now I can look into, well, heck. There's GitHub Copilot giving us some information. Yeah, it might be null here. So now I have the exception there, and I can inspect it. I can grab the stack trace, and I can even have that returned. So, right, I can say view bag stack trace equals that. And over here, right, I could do something like this and say view bag stack trace. And oh geez, that's right, it's a collection, isn't it? No, it's a string. It's a string. I'm good. I'm good like that. So if I save that in there, and now it's dumped out that stack trace, okay? So I've formatted, I've grabbed inside my error handler page, over here, right? I've specified here's where to go to handle an exception, right? This is set globally across the entire application. When it goes there, I have this code that now will inspect and write out information to a view that now has a little bit of information. And of course, I can show and hide this appropriately, take other actions, throw something into an event log, whatever it might be, so that my support folks can handle this better. Okay? Taking a look over here at chat. Mohammed, you missed. I would have answered that during AMA, and I would prefer Blazor. Why is it I use in Mozilla Firefox? I like to bounce around between different browsers, but I do prefer Firefox. Come on now. There we go. Yes, HTTP cats. Hopefully, right? HTTP.cat. That's a website? Are you kidding? / status code. Fantastic. That's great. I would want to embed these as error pages inside my application. That's cool. Thank you for sharing. Okay, so you can do all kinds of things to handle errors once you start inspecting what's happened in there. So routing over to another page, inspect, and you can also do that in line as an exception handler here. So you can say app, when there is an exception, go do this thing. And this type of interaction might be more in line when you're building just a microservice. You're building something that isn't going to have a human facade to it, right? It's just machines interacting with it. You may want to use this type of approach where it's just error handler code that's living here and is going to do interactions to write things out. So status code pages are over here as well, so that you can point to and say, well, go use right, this, I haven't used this. With format string, yeah. Lambdas, all kinds of stuff you can do that. Redirect to another page, that's the one I'm thinking of. And have it go to a page that actually has that content. All right. So that's a little bit with how you can do error handling. You can customize it. You can have it set up across your entire application to behave the way that you need it to have a great experience for those folks that are interacting with your application. We still there, YouTube? I don't see any. YouTube's gone silent on me here. Yes, we are multi-platform. I haven't seen any YouTube chat in a little bit here. No, this is. I haven't used the code pages here. I've done everything in that global handler. Fantastic. There are some folks still there. There we go. I'm getting chat appearing now. Cool. All right. Focused on learning. Cool. So that's a little bit around exceptions, global error handling as you go through and add to your application. I'm going to leave this down here and this little bit of customization. so that you can see here's where I've customized. I've grabbed the stack trace and I've put it on the page so that you can see it. All right. The next thing I wanted to get into was let's add an API to get data for machines to be able to interact with our application. And this is so easy to do. When we talk about .NET and ASP.NET Core being focused on your productivity, this is one of those areas. We've already got our home controller here that I've got set up to use a repository pattern. It's receiving a repository, and I'm saying, repository, go get that data and put it into an items collection, format it as a view, and over here in Firefox, there's my view for humans to be able to read. But if I want to do the same thing and make it visible for machines to be able to interact with, right? It's an API endpoint. It's something that a method, an application is going to query and interact with. I can do that real easy, and it's built to be used the same way that you currently work with this as a human, right? I'm going to return an iAction result. I'm actually going to return an iAction result that's an IEnumerable of, right, collection item. Okay? And I'm going to call that, I need one more closing there, and I'm going to call this get API. Okay? And that's all I'm going to do. It's almost the exact same syntax. I need to put a little bit of using statements here. Yeah, change that to an action result. There we go. Now, I want to make this, this is returning as an API method. At least that's what it looks like. So if I go up here and I go /home/get API, it returns some JSON to me. I don't necessarily want to go to get API, browse there to have this come up. I want that to be an endpoint that listens for the various HTTP verbs to be able to work with my code. So here's what we can do. We can decorate this with an HTTP GET attribute. Attributes that we put on top of our methods will decorate and change their behavior. And it happens at launch time. ASP.NET wakes up, inspects all of the attributes that we have in our code, and decides to configure different route endpoints. We talked about routing previously, but when I do this, I'm now saying, listen for an HTTP GET verb, right? Because when you interact with your browser, various verbs are executed against the server. I'm getting data. I'm posting data. I'm putting data. I'm deleting. You execute, you send these verbs in, and there's other verbs out there like patch and head and options that you can use to interact with servers. But I'm going to start with just HTTP GET, and I can specify the template of the URL that I want to use to allow you to get this data. And I'm going to have you go to /API/items, and it will return this content. So hot reload succeeded. I'll go back over here, and now /get API doesn't return anything. There's nothing there, so it just fails silently. It fails silently because I turned off the developer exception page over here. So let's bring that back in, move it over, save. I will reload that. Program doesn't get hot reloaded. Program CS needs to be rebuilt and restarted. Hot reload runs on everything that happens after. So I should be getting a 404 message here when I go to this page. Yeah, 404. So you see, way over there, 404. Okay. So it's telling me, I don't know what to do with this. There's file not found at that location. Not found. But I can now go to API items and I get my data. I ran a get to that location, all right? And it's returning data in a machine-appropriate format. In this case, it's in JSON format, and I've got a little bit of formatter here, right? There it is, without the formatting, exactly what it looks like. Okay, that's nice. I can also add some capabilities onto my API here to filter, maybe, and say, go get a specific one to return. So I can put that same API, and I'm in the controller, I'm in the home controller, I'm in the same place that I'm rendering the user interface. I'm going to put another one in here, and I'm going to call this find item API is the name I'll give to this method. And instead of just doing repository.get and go to /API/items, I'm going to put an ID on the end of this. Okay. In fact, I'm going to tell it that ID is an int. And over here, I'll add that parameter as a parameter here, and wow, Copilot right away here generating some code for me that's actually pretty good. Kind of what I'm looking for. I need to change this. I'm not returning an IEnumerable of collection items, but just that one. There we go. And yeah, find isn't there. We're going to turn this into first order default. And I need to do this on a get, so I have all the stuff. And I'm going to say where I, not acquired, ID equals that ID. All right. So here, go get all the data. Give me the first item or default where the ID matches. Now, you may want to actually, instead of going and saying, give me all the collection, find me the first or default like this, you may want to actually pass that ID all the way into the repository, have the database do that filter, and return appropriately. Let's do that refactor in a second here. If we don't find anything, return a not found indicator, that 404 we just saw. Otherwise, return OK with that item. So I will save that, and I can go back over here and put a /1, and it will fetch and return my first hat that I have in my collection, my Atari hat. Black hat with the classic Atari logo. Fantastic. Right, and of course I can change that to 2, and it will return the other one. So I've only got 2 items in the collection, but you also saw if I type in something there, I get a 404 because it doesn't match any of my APIs. You need to pass in an integer for it to be able to search. So if I try going and getting 10, I still get a 404. I still get a not found because I don't have an object at 10. There is no ID there. It's all handled for us. ASP.NET, by adding just that extra little bit of code there, knows to evaluate and make that appear appropriately. Let me go over to the repository and let's add a find by ID method to my repository object. So I'm going to jump up here and I'll go into my collection repository and let's add a method for a collection item, find by ID, right? And yes, that's exactly what I'm looking for, Copilot. Thank you. So this could return null. That's right, it could. I'm okay with that because it might be null. So now I can go back over here and change from this first or default to say find by ID. There it is. And I'm typing less and less code because Copilot is helping me by suggesting things that might work with my existing code. All right, so that's all built in there. I should have everything saved. I have autosave turned on. So now if I go back up here and we go back to 1, there it is. There's my there's the Atari hat. And of course, if I go back to the front page of the website, there they are. There's the 2 hats that are in my collection that I have currently saved in the database. So we've written a little bit of an API that allows us to see and work with the contents inside my collection. That code lives in the same file as my controller that also has the formatting for other pages in my application. I don't necessarily need to do that, but for how simple this website is, that's okay. That does what I need for this. Let me answer some questions here before I go a little bit further here. Scrolling here. Adverts are so long. Sorry about that. That's Twitch. That's not us. What I like about Copilot is that I can also teach by giving some insight in your problem. Yes, absolutely. Just got here. What's the difference between an action result and an I-action result? So I-action result is just the interface that defines it, right? Defines the various types of actions that you might be returning, the various indicators like OK and view. Using action result is necessary if you're going to declare a type, something that you're returning as part of it. You need to specify, I'm returning a concrete one of these with this generic, with this specific type that we're loading up there. But otherwise, yeah, it's just that it's not generic. Thank you, Christian, helping out there on YouTube. I don't have my mouse here, so scrolling is a little bit tricky. Let's see here. What keyboard am I using? I'm on, this is a Surface Book 2 that I'm using. And I have this is a Logitech wireless keyboard that I'm using over here. This is the K400 that I'm using that has a touchpad on the side so I can control my my second, well, this is actually 1, 2, 3. This is my fourth machine that's running right now to produce this stream that has the what's it called? The teleprompter loaded with your chat. Yeah, the adverts on Twitch they've been getting longer recently, I've noticed. What JSON viewer am I using in Firefox? Let me head back over there. This is... I don't see it. Did I flip right past it? It's not Better TweetDeck. Nope. I thought I was running like Pretty JSON or I forget what. But I don't see it. I'm not sure. Just because it's not here anymore. No. MetaMask. I don't touch that thing anymore. No, I don't see it. Actually, I wonder if this is the one, if this is built in. Yeah, I think this is built in now. What do I use for authentication? Microsoft Identity, and wire it up to some other thing like Azure Active Directory. But that's something we'll talk about on another stream, Walshy. There are videos earlier in the series that you can go to that talk about authentication. Okay, we've got about 20 minutes. We've added in an API, and we can do other bits to this API if we want. There's other verbs that we can connect, and we're going to get into those another time that will allow us to handle those other verbs. Post, put, delete, most notably. But I wanted to wire up OpenAPI to this. And OpenAPI is a way for us. Somebody was mentioning earlier about WSDL, the Web Service Definition Language. OpenAPI gives us the ability to generate a documentation website and a definition along with schemas of our APIs so that folks can learn and connect and interact with our APIs using potentially, hopefully, strongly typed clients. Clients that are set up that have all their information about how to interact with the API already. Would I be able to use enum somehow? Like what? Like, help me out there. In the string? You would need to parse it. Like, if you want to do a search on different collection item types, and you had an enum that supported them, you'd receive those as a string, and you'd have to parse, turn it back into the enum. You can't have a constraint of type enum here. That doesn't work. That's not something that you can do. But you would pass in the string, inspect it, and then return a 400 level status appropriately, indicating that it's not a valid type. So, Gabriel asks, is it okay to throw a custom not found exception in the repository, then catch it in the controller and return a not found? Great idea, Gabriel. Let's do that real quick right here. Right? So if we say var output value equals this first or default here, right? So let's put that, right? And say if output value equals null, let's make this a null reference exception, item not found. Otherwise, I'm returning output value, right? And now, exactly to Gabriel's point, let's go back over to home controller, and I can do something like this. Get rid of that, move this one down here, put that over there, something like that, right? And catch null reference exception, return not found. And now, over here, if I go to 10, I get a 404 because it didn't find anything because I don't have an item at number 10. If I go to 1, there's the first hat in the collection Atari. So I like that as part of the demo, Gabriel. And it also, right, does all of our null checking here for us, and we're handling our nulls better. Instead of just ignoring and saying, well, that's null, I don't care. Well, we're checking to see if it's null. Let's put that on one line. I like that on one line. Right? Throw a space in there. Right? So if the value is null, throw a new null reference exception, which makes sense. Right? We don't want nulls coming through. Indicate that and send the information back so that you can handle it appropriately. The exceptions are slow. Yes. So maybe there's an option here where, right? Maybe we have a public static collection item called not found. Public static collection item. Why don't you like this? There. No, I wanted you to be, there we go. So what I could do is, instead, I could say return collection item not found, right? Yeah. And over here, after we find by ID, if item equals collection item not found, return not found. I can do that as well. Yep. And if we try and go to 10, I get the not found. different ways to handle this. The exceptions are slow, without question. We always try to avoid throwing exceptions because when you throw an exception, you end up walking up and down the ASP.NET, the .NET stack, which takes time. So writing better error handler scenarios is going to help you with this. All right. Yes, OpenAPI. You can generate clients for those. So let me see here. So let's get to the read aloud feature is the feature, says Prometheus Cygnus. Thank you. Was somebody asking about that? Why are you reading this aloud or something? But yes, absolutely. And I've heard from folks who are, thank you, Prometheus Cygnus, on Twitch. I've heard from some folks who are visually impaired that by me reading the code as I write it, reading your messages as we go along, and being very descriptive about how we're writing code, it makes it more accessible to them. I also think not only does it make that code more accessible, but it also means that you can watch the stream without actually on a separate screen on your phone while you're doing something else. Maybe you're out doing some landscaping, you're walking the dog, driving to work. You can be listening and you have a good idea of what's going on. Seva on YouTube suggests, why not turn that into a, we can absolutely turn this into even simpler here. You're right, let's turn that into a ternary expression. So if not found, we can say, let's put not found on another line after that, and I can do a colon, okay, item, and put that. So now, very, very, very terse indication here by saying return item and saying item double equals collection item not found, question mark, return the not found. The not found method. Otherwise, colon, okay, and the item that we found. From here. Very, very terse. And I'll reload. That works. When I go to 10, when I go to item 1, I get item 1 loaded. Fantastic. Great suggestion, Seva. Thank you so much for sending that along. Zofran listens while walking. Yeah. There's a few Python, few audio books like that for Python. Cool. All right. So I wanted to, we've got about 12 minutes. I wanted to try and add, OpenAPI into this. So, yeah, this one. Not the tool command reference. No. Let's do this with swashbuckle. So I'm going to grab this and make sure that I have this linked in our README. All right. So that you have this information. I'm going to clear out some of that. I also remove, when I link documentation, I remove the language indicator so that the documentation picks up whatever language you speak, you read on the web, and prefers that instead. Okay? So let's add Swagger into this. Now, Swagger is the older name for OpenAPI. Swagger is a product of SmartBear, but we can add in some components to make it easier for you to interact with and interact with your OpenAPIs. So I'm going to add Swashbuckle ASP.NET Core 6. I'm not even going to specify 623. Let's do this at the command line. You can do this in full Visual Studio using add reference dialog. I'm going to do this at the command line because I am elite like that, right? .NET add package swashbuckle ASP.NET Core. Look at all that code. Woo! All right. We're good. I now have swashbuckle in there. I'm going to head back over to program, and we need to configure a couple things over here. And there is documentation that allows us to configure middleware. And I also mentioned we're going to talk about adding some middleware to inspect header. We will do that in just a second. I need to add Endpoint API Explorer and Swagger Gen inside of the routing over here. So, I'm sorry, in the section where we're configuring our services. So I'm adding those here. So it registers that Endpoint Explorer and the Swagger generation tools. And we need to add Swagger and the Swagger UI. Those are... They put them in the app development. That's fine. We'll put them in there too. There we go. You may want them to be available in production. That's okay. All right. I don't want that. No. I think we're okay. So let's go. Did I stop it? I stopped the application. We need to restart it. And we'll go navigate here, and it'll all be ready for us. So while that's running, I'm going to scroll down here in chat. Iken has collection of hat or something. I'm going to just go to /swagger or not. Is it v1 swagger.json? No. What's my URL for this? How did I get this wrong? Swagger /v1. No. What did I do wrong here? Can be found at localhost port /swagger. Right. No, didn't load. What'd I do wrong here, friends? Use Swagger UI, add Swagger Gen. Yeah. That should have done it. Just those 4 lines. I'm going to move these down. Force the reload, see if we can get this. Swagger index HTML? No, that's not where it is. No. There it is. Yeah, it was in the wrong place. So this generates, adding those couple lines, adding that package, generates a website that has the definition for how to interact with this API. So if I open, I get a JSON file here that defines all the information about what my APIs have exposed. Let me go back to the pretty printing here so you can see this. So if I go to these 2 paths, /API/items, or /API/items with an optional ID being passed in, it will return, it'll take in an integer as a parameter here. It'll respond with 200 success, and it's a collection item that it's being returned. And so on and so forth. You can go through and explore this documentation yourself. But it lets us define exactly what this content looks like that we're interacting with. And there's tools that you can use, and I can test here inside my user interface. There's tools that I can use that will allow me to generate code, C# code, that will connect in and take those appropriate interactions with my APIs that I've developed. This is all built for you. You have a strongly typed client that can connect in and work with all those endpoints. So you as a developer don't need to think about how do I structure my HTTP client and the calls and the headers and pull all those things together and what's the format of the variables that I'm passing in and deserializing objects appropriately so that I can put them into my application. You don't have to think about it. It's all done for you. That's powerful. That's great stuff that's already here. I have is development. Yes. That's if it not is development. That's what it was. That's what it was. So I didn't have it running in the development mode. Thank you. Cool. So I have that working. The last thing was, can we talk a little bit about middleware? And I've got about 5 minutes left. So middleware is what's happening in this area right here. This is the HTTP pipeline. This defines how our requests are handled inside of our code. And we have these use statements here. Okay. Now, they define another block of code that actually has a bunch of things that will inject and inspect and do different things inside the interactions with my application. But I can put in here various methods that I want to use instead. So I could say app.use, and I can have it take in some context, go do something, and continue on to the next piece in the pipeline. So if I let that autocomplete there, I'm not going to get the error here. Let's not do that. Right? But this is actually what it generated. It's a nice little piece here. Go get that exception handler feature, just like we saw in the error page. Get the logger. Go get the logger inside the application and log an error with that information. So let me put that using statement in there. I'll let that reload. Okay. And I'll go back into home controller and let me do that same removal of the repository object. Back over to here. Reload. I get the exception. And I get, see the fail over there? I get the error logged for me. All right? So, all good stuff that you can do and implement if you want to inspect the header, right? So let me put that back. Now, there is error handling that you can do in here so that it returns appropriately if there is an error interacting with this. I'll need to link you some documentation on that, how that happens. Need to link handling 500 errors on API methods. I'll get you some documentation on that as we wrap up here. You can also inspect the header. Somebody said, well, I want to inspect a header. You can reach into context request headers, request whatever header you want with, and take appropriate actions at that point. That's on a use. There's other methods here like app.map that says, hey, if this situation happened, go do this other thing. And there is also, I forget the last method. It's map, run. Run doesn't continue on to anything. Run is an endpoint. Run says, go do this code. Here's a delegate that has information about the code to run. Okay, so I could do something like console write line hello world. Okay. Yes, it doesn't like that. Fine. Nope, doesn't like that either. The point is you specify another block of code to run, and it doesn't continue on in the in the pipeline when you use app.run. All right, we are out of time, friends. I need to head over to the other machine. Let's get wrapped up. Let's call it a day. Oh my goodness. Whew. That was a lot. We went through and talked about a lot there. So much to appreciate in there. I'm going to get that last bit of documentation updated with information about how to handle 500 errors, and that'll get you pretty far along there. Will I be talking about action filters? Christian, do me a favor, open an issue in the GitHub repository, and I'll make sure that that's included in the next session. We're going to talk about SignalR coming up. I think action filters we need to get into. We need to talk about editing data and working with that. That'll be coming along. Am I using an error handler framework with like nlog or just... No, nlog is a logging framework, not an error handler framework. But nlog, seralog, all those things work great to log data. You can definitely use one of those. Am I hiding the cool blue hair? Yes, I am. I had somebody say to me, "You look like Hades from the cartoon movie, the animated movie Hercules." Like, okay, I hear that totally. Thank you so much, friends, for tuning in. I appreciate you watching. I appreciate you joining me. I'll have some data updated in the demos for this. And somebody asked me if I could publish a calendar. I need to publish a calendar and get that out there. Talking about some of the sessions that are coming up. Those of you that are watching us on Learn TV, thank you so much for watching. Hope you have a fantastic day. There's lots of great content coming on Learn TV. If you're watching us over on YouTube, there is a huge collection of videos here on the .NET channel. Check it out, including videos in the Learn C# with CSharpFritz series. And those of you that are watching on Twitch, stick around the Visual Studio channel. We got a couple more streams coming for you later today. And we need to set up a raid. Let's get folks on Twitch raided. Let's get you into another channel where there's some more fun developer content happening that we can connect to, learn more from. I'm going to take a peek around the horn here, and I'm going to get you connected with... Wow, there aren't that many people streaming this morning. Let me get you connected with... let me get you connected with Tim Bodette, who is taking names and building games, he says. He's writing games as an independent developer over on his channel. Thank you. There we go. Thank you so much, friends, for tuning in. I won't be back next week. We have an American holiday next week, but we will be on the 11th, back streaming live, talking more about all kinds of great stuff with .NET, with web development, and we're probably going to finish up this series before the end of July. All right. Have a fantastic rest of your day, wherever you might be. I wish you good health, good code. Take care and get ready to say hi to my friend Tim Bodette on Twitch. We'll see you.